Backstage with Mothership on Solid Rock Radio begins now. Hear the best in new music, artist interviews, stories from the road, and more. You are now backstage, and here's your host, Mothership.
Hey everybody, this week I'm bringing you along on a call with Matt Baird. He was on the road in the mountains of Colorado, hopped out of the car onto a hiking trail and found a stump to sit on in order to share with us about all the exciting things happening with Spoken. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for asking me. I mean, it's been a while since JR and I did that one on the back of your van.
Yeah.
Where was that?
It was in Florida at that lighthouse.
Yeah, it was good. It was after the traumatic experience of all the guys dressing in Hawaiian attire and JR wearing a kimono.
Yes, and climbing a lighthouse in the middle of the set.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
I still have that video.
I can't believe his guitar worked that far away.
I know, right?
It was a good wireless pack. Yeah.
New album, new label. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
You just released in March. Has it been 7 years since the last album?
That's what I've been told. I mean, I don't pay attention to it, but that's what I've been told. 7 years. I mean, that's the longest gap yet because there was 5 years between our self-titled and our Illusion record, which seemed like an eternity. Mm-hmm. Once we got the lineup solidified with Jared, Dylan, JR, and they started writing, and I had a lot of acoustic shows booked, so I was like, it'd be really cool to be able to get together in a room and jam like a real band because we haven't been able to do that in decades. And so they did. They got together at a studio in New York, and I think they spent 12 days goofing off mostly.
That tracks.
But they wrote a ton of songs. And I just told them, it's like, you write whatever you want and send me MP3s at the end of the day, and I will write while driving, to and from acoustic shows. And that's what we did. And then I went out 3 different times between December and February, I think, 2 days at a time. I flew out to Boston, rented a car, went to the studio for 2 days, came back, and just kept doing that. We got it done. They did all the work. My part was minute compared to what JR, Dylan, and Jared did.
They are official now. Is that correct?
Yeah, they are official. The thing is, like, Dylan took a job in Phoenix working for a huge production company. So he hasn't played a show with us in like a year, probably, something crazy.
Yeah.
So Eli has been filling in for Dylan, which has been amazing. Eli's amazing. He's hilarious. He's a great player. He's a great writer as well. So I plan on taking advantage of his ability, as well when we, continue writing, because we've already started writing for another record. Jared, our drummer, he can't turn the writing mode off. And so, I mean, really every few days he was like, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. And so it's crazy.
That's not a bad trait to have in a band member.
It's not. I think all the stuff he sends is really cool, and then JR's writing as well. And then Jared will send stuff to JR, and JR will do what JR does to stuff, and they'll send it back and forth. So you kind of have like a skeleton of a song, and then it becomes a full-blown, fully produced demo. And so the stuff they give me to write my parts to, it couldn't be better. Like, it's a finished song, and they're like, cool, do whatever. And so my hope is to not screw it up. And so that's truly it. So I'm like, Jesus, please, you write what you want to write and let me know what that is, and let me try to write it.
On the record, I absolutely love this album.
Thank you so much.
What has the feedback been like so far?
I mean, people seem to really like it. I mean, I had a long conversation with someone today about, I can't believe Brian's involved. It's Brian's label. All this stuff. And it's kind of one of those, is this real? Is it not? Yes, Brian is somewhat a real human being. Not fully, but
I feel that.
That you experience it, it's really cool to be able to do something with someone that was in a band that helped define your sound when you're 19 years old and one of your favorite bands. And now to be in a room with him, or to be sitting at Steak and Shake having milkshakes with him or whatever, is like, there's no way this is really happening. And so with Brian being involved, and then Brian's manager, David Williams, David has been in music, Christian market, general market for decades. And so he knows what he's doing. And then Jonathan, who also works at the label, like he's like tech guru guy. Like I was on the phone with him before I called you because he's switching a bunch of our web hosting stuff over, and I don't know how to do any of that. So I'm like, cool, man, thank you. He's like, oh yeah, no problem. It's not a big deal. I'm like, okay. There's a good team of people that know music around this whole thing. And for me, one, that my wife is supportive. My friends that are in this band with me, they're the most talented people I've ever been around. So it's like, okay, that's amazing. They're great songwriters. All of them could produce records out of their house today if they wanted. And then you have Brian, David, Jonathan, everyone there at the label situation. And then just people actually taking the time to care about the record, about the songs. People that we've known forever that are in radio being like, what's the next single? What's the next single? You know, they want more too. And so it's been really cool. Plus with the artwork, Dylan did such a great job with the artwork, the layout for the vinyl, you know, for the CD, the 2 music videos. Dylan did all the directing and all that. JR helped with editing on the music videos. He helped with the mix. Jared and JR went back and forth for months on the mix of the record, getting it as close to perfect as, you know, they possibly could. And I gave up listening to it probably after the first week, you know, of just, you guys do what you think sounds right. I'm on board. And so they're still upset at me with that. I've only listened to the record one time all the way through.
If I remember correctly, once it's finished, you don't go back and listen to it.
I don't. At that point, it's done. And like, if we're playing it live, I'll hear it then, you know. I'm not going to seek it out on the radio. I'm not going to stream our record, you know. I don't know. If people talk about it, and I'm hoping this isn't something that you do. So here's my disclaimer. They will be talking to me on these interviews or podcasts or whatever it is, and they'll say a phrase. Now, it sounds like lyrics to me. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, that's yours. I'm like, what? They're like, those are your lyrics. I'm like, okay, I guess.
Quickly deletes lyrics questions from my notes.
Yeah, thank you. You're like, okay, I'm not going to ask that. But
we'll mark that off.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like Spoken is on like turbo cruise control right now.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what turbo cruise control is.
I mean, seems like Spoken's momentum is taking off and you're just kind of hanging on for the ride.
Yeah.
You're just steering it, man.
I'm trying to steer it. Because I mean, when you look at touring, of the way touring was pre-COVID, it was already in a hard spot because people were trying to figure out how to keep promoting shows without losing their tail. Church budgets were being cut left and right, and therefore bringing in a band or something was way down the list, you know, when it comes to types of outreach. And then you have clubs and bars, music venues who, if they had a liquor license, that would help them keep their door open. But then you have these other venues that are just all ages venues that do not have, you know, a desire to have liquor license. Therefore, they're trying to figure out how do you keep the doors open. And then that's when they rely so heavily on their little snack shack in the corner. You're like, oh, we're going to sell bottles of water. We're going to sell pop. We're going to sell nachos. We're going to sell hot dogs, you know, and I get it. It's hard to keep bills paid, especially when like a music venue so often is kind of an extra added bonus if someone has cash to throw around, you know.
Right.
It's really hard to make it be self-sufficient where it pays all the bills itself.
Right.
And then you add COVID to the mix. This is my number. I throw this number out. 70% of the venues that were already struggling before COVID are gone now.
Yeah.
And so they're gone. And you have this rebuilding process of people trying to figure out if they can do a show, what's it take to do a show. No one wants to teach them how to do a show. You have no local bands that are excited about playing a show because bands that are peers of mine don't want opening bands. They don't want opening bands on their show. I'm like, but can you imagine the excitement you felt when you first started a band and you were so excited to open up for whatever touring band was coming through town?
Right.
We are taking that away from local support if we're like, yeah, no openers. To me, it's like, cool, let's teach them something. Let's hang out with them. Let's be a part of their life because, you know, if they're doing their role, they're, yes, getting better as a band, writing better songs, learning how to be in a band, learning how to play in their region, and then start to tour. But they're also bringing their friends, their family, their coworkers, their kids from school. We need all the help we can get to get people in the doors of these concerts. And so it's like, by all means necessary, like, invite your neighbor. That's cool. Invite the guy you don't really like. Maybe he likes music,
Right.
all of it. And for bands that they have the luxury to be able to tour and play shows and play consistent sized crowds and all, how about you let the local bands have an opportunity? Because someday those local bands might be the bands that might take you on tour. And that's the truth.
True.
That's how it is. And so I guess I'm on a different page than a lot of my peers. It's greenhorn talent. They don't know any better. Therefore, that's why they play a show. They go over their set time by 20 minutes. Everyone's mad at them for doing it. They probably weren't very good in the first place. And then instead of just getting all of their gear off stage, they stand there and their drummer's talking to their buddy, taking off his cymbals. He's like loosening, like, yeah, right, cool, right. Where it's like, get your stuff off the stage, put it on the floor, and then talk to your buddy, But if no one's teaching them that, how do they know? They don't. All of us had to learn. I miss there being 3 local bands on every show. I miss it.
Yeah. Well, you were mentored, so you want a mentor, and that's for sure.
I mean, I've sat in the back of the room at the merch table watching. I'm not saying that I'm not annoyed that band went over their time, because that affects the whole evening.
Yeah, right.
But they're up there. I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah, I broke this stick, and like they're talking about what they did, and that's cool. But you can do that right there. Just get off the stage.
We want you here, brother, but get off the stage.
Yeah, that'll be the only thing people hear from me on this interview is like Matt said, just get off the stage. Get off the stage.
So the new album on XOVR Records is called Reflection. What are the songs that pop into your mind immediately when you think of the album? I'm hoping you do better with song titles than lyrics.
Reflection, I mean, the title track, I know that song. I mean, In the Dark, we've been playing live. Hourglass, we played for a long time before we recorded it. Awaken Me, same thing. We had played that for a long time because we released it during COVID. I remember when JR and I worked on it, I recorded vocals for the demo that we released online at the Radio U Studios in Columbus. Like, they let us go into the side room, which is normally like the green room for the bands. And JR had a laptop, I had a vocal mic, and we recorded the vocals. I retracked them in New York at the studio, but that was a song that was released during COVID, and so it made the record. I know there's a lot of songs that we had talked about making the record that they didn't make the record, and so the guys picked them. I didn't. I'm like, cool, do whatever. But one of the songs, I'm not gonna tell you what song, I didn't want it to be on the record. I'm like, no, I don't think so. And they're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, I don't feel the same way about this song as you guys do. Anyway, there's a show coming up that we are going to play that song for the first time ever. And so they decided that yesterday. They're like, how about we do this? But I will text you after this interview and tell you what song it is. But I'll let you know.
This is going to air like the day after Uprise. Is it going to be an Uprise?
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to play it at Uprise. Okay. We're going to play Echoes, the first song off the record, at Uprise.
Okay.
And so
That's a heavy song.
It's like the tip top of anybody's vocal range ever. And I don't know why I did that to myself. So
I believe that's happened to you a couple of times.
It has. It's like, why?
But yeah, I know what you're saying, especially like if you decided you want to turn it into an acoustic.
No, I'll never play that song. I cannot play a single riff off the new record because I'm not a guitar player, and it's a very guitar-driven record.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, I know. Got a prodigy working on it. It's weird. Truthfully, the 3 guys that played on that record, Dylan is a prodigy in his own right when it comes to, yes, guitar player, great performer, great guy, sweet guy. But imagery and videography, photography, all of it, it's crazy. He's been doing it since he was literally 10 years old. JR is a prodigy. Everyone knows that. Jared is a prodigy when it comes to writing songs. Yes, drumming. He's an amazing drummer. But producing and like bells and whistles when it comes to production. And I don't know, it's just really,
that's crazy.
It's really good. I'm a decent driver. That's what I got going for me. So.
And you can repair vehicles.
Yeah. Yeah. For the most part.
Unless it's a transmission or something, right?
Yeah. I bail out on that. I don't even try.
Yeah. I started thinking about this the other day. I was like, everything that he writes about is hope and looking towards the future, but it's like done in so many different ways. And that's just kind of your theme, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think because every day, like, I'm grasping at straws. Like, I'm like, Jesus, please help in all of these situations. And it's every aspect of life. I need him. I need him to guide my steps. And so often we try to figure things out on our own, and that's not how it's supposed to work. We are supposed to be desperate for a savior, and that means we need him in all aspects of our life. And so often people think that certain songs are about certain people or conversations that maybe I've had with people. It's like, but a lot of the songs are about my own. I'm reaching, I'm trying to see the light. I'm trying to get to the mountaintop or through the valley, or it's me, and some of them are based on conversation. Some of them are people that are really close to me and things that they've had to deal with themselves. But there are also times where it's a line that a pastor will say. They will say a certain line, and I'll put it in my phone as a note, and I'll come back to it later, or a voice memo or something like that.
Mm-hmm. In this season of your life, have you felt even more urgency?
Yeah. Time has escaped me. I don't feel like I have a lot of time left because it's going by so fast.
Yeah.
And to be in a spot where I can still play music and tour 28 years into this journey, any day it could be the last. It could be the last, show. It could be the last opportunity to play music. It could be the last opportunity to be in front of a group of strangers and present the gospel because of songs and stories. I mean, almost every night of this tour that I'm on now is an overnight drive, so like every overnight drive, I look at the same thing. I'm like, Jesus, please be with me, because anybody could like come into my lane at any moment. Yeah. Same way last night. Most of my drive was dodging deer last night until I finally pulled off. A deer and coyotes last night was very prominent on the roadway. And so this morning when I stopped at a gas station, slept for a while, and then I took off driving again, and coming through southern Wyoming, it was all antelope and coyotes on the road everywhere.
What?
Yeah, everywhere. Hundreds of antelope today, roaming around, just going wherever they want to go, looking at me as I drive by, and they're like looking back, like, what's this guy doing?
Oh my goodness. They're after you, Matt.
Yeah, they're after me.
Totally. Tell me how the whole deal with XOVR Records came about. Can you give us a rundown?
Yeah. Obviously, JR and Brian they've been playing music together for, 15 years now? Something
how
crazy.
Old is he?
JR's 30.
15 years then. He was 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there was the talk a while ago about like, it'd be cool if Brian started a label, because he can. You know what I mean? Like, that'd be so awesome. And then, it probably took 2 years to convince him to do it, and he eventually was like, oh, all right, so figured that out. And then like, here's what we'll do. We'll start writing songs and we'll figure out this plan. He and David Williams put everything together, and that's kind of where we're at now. Like, it was convincing him because he didn't really want to do it.
Yeah. You have to convince him to pretty much do everything. Like,
it's true.
Yeah, because we had a hard time convincing him to finish Perfectly Preserved. And the whole reason my name is in the thank yous is because I pestered them so much they finally finished it.
Yeah, JR and I had so many conversations about that while driving. We'll be driving. I'm like, what is going on? What is Love and Death doing? He's like, Brian is not doing it. He doesn't want to sing. I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly. And that was it.
He has to sing.
He hates to sing.
Yep. And so we just started. I'm like, let's just write some stuff and just send it to him and see if he likes it. Like, and so that's kind of how that happened. And people like you bugging him and however, but I think he got tired of hearing, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And so eventually it happened.
Well, we're glad it did.
But yeah, me too. It's a great record.
Yeah.
It's a great record.
So what's after Uprise?
Uprise, and then we're doing 5 shows with The Protest, and then we're doing a show with Disciple and Ashes Remain in Virginia, and then we're doing another 5 shows with The Protest in November. That's kind of it.
Okay.
I've got a ton of acoustic stuff booked, and I'm still booking some stuff for November on the West Coast, and then December kind of wherever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Recently, you missed a few shows because of
Yeah.
sickness in the family. I don't know if you want to share that. If you don't want to, that's fine too.
Yeah, I mean, my father-in-law, he had a stroke 7 years ago, and he had some symptoms from that, like things that he was trying to work through. And then, at this point, about 5.5 weeks ago, he was found unresponsive. He had an infection that no one knew he had, and he was in the hospital for 13 days. He just wasn't eating. He wasn't drinking. They had him on the IV medication, the antibiotics for the infection, but with elderly, infection really affects them in a different way than it does a younger person. So it really affected his brain, and his brain was basically telling him, like, don't be eating, don't be drinking. Couldn't get him to eat, couldn't get him to drink. And then they put him on in-home hospice for 9 days, and he passed. It's been 3 weeks ago, and it was, my wife and I were with him most of the time, during that whole process, like 22 days or something. And it was really rough, and I feel so bad for my wife. I feel bad for my kids. I feel bad for my mother-in-law and brother-in-law, sister-in-law. And so, like, I just had to cancel stuff, and I normally don't really cancel stuff, but it's like, I'm not leaving, I don't.
Right.
It's kind of a rare thing for me to be like, I don't care what anybody thinks. I don't care if they never book me again, whatever. But the family is a different situation, and I think it's something that we learn more and more as we get older, and we realize that people can always go to another show. I already deal with people saying yes or no to if they want to book a show with the band or myself, and I'm not like mad at them if they say no. Same way as like if I cancel for a good reason and they don't want to book me again, fine, cool. That doesn't make any sense, but okay. And so now it's like the more and more I realize that it's just a show. Yes, it's an opportunity to play music and to present the gospel and see people. But if they actually care about you as a human, not just a guy in a band, they're going to come back to shows from now on. It doesn't matter. And so that's where I'm at in my life right now. I'm like, and I'm guilty of not being that way for a lot of years. There are a lot of things I should have just been like, I'm not going, and canceled day of and don't go, because maybe my family needed me more that day than that promoter 1,500 miles from my house that I only see once a year.
Right.
So it's like actually trying to live out these priorities that I always talk about. And that priority is my family, and I'm going to be much more severe on myself about like, oh, you know what? It's not convenient to leave today. I'm not leaving, I really feel like I probably should have been that way 28 years ago, but here I am now, and dealing with loss is hard, and it brings about all these other things that you have to deal with when you lose someone. And I just feel really bad for anybody who has lost someone, and I mean, I lost my dad over 17 years ago, and I think of him every day.
Yeah.
So there's a certain amount of grace that needs to be given to people when dealing with loss or heartbreak or heartache or whatever. So, and that can be with any situation in life,
Yeah, I think it takes a while for us to realize that the tyranny of the urgent, you just, I got to go do this, I got to do that. But there's nothing that can replace sitting by the bedside of the person who brought you into the world and holding their hand as they slip into eternity.
Yeah, I'm not ready to do that again anytime soon. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, same here. It kind of numbs you when you lose somebody, which is, a God thing, because, we can't always handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think then it's one of those situations of something traumatic and unexpected, and, or someone, when they went to bed that night, they were fine and they didn't wake up the next morning. You're like, whoa, what just happened?
Right.
Or someone who's dealing with a long-term sickness and they have to deal with it for years upon years. Like, I don't know. Nothing about it is easy, whether it's you knew it was coming or not,
Loss is loss.
Yep. In so many situations, there's only so much you can do. Some outcomes you can't change, but trusting in Jesus is the only way that it's actually going to make sense. And so,
yeah, I'm sorry for your loss, and give Tiffany a big hug for me.
I will. any excuse to grab her, yes, I'll do it. She's amazing. She's my favorite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see why. Have we missed anything? Do you have any final message before we finish?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to you. Thank you for being so supportive of my family and recognizing when we are dealing with kind of a tough situation and not even needing to know details. You dive into action and you contact. I can only imagine all the people that you contacted, and I picture all of their faces and all their names are popping into my head, and each of them, and they know who they are. Like they know who they are. The people that they don't only pour into my life, but to JR's life, to anybody that's ever played and spoken, anybody in Disciple, anybody in Decipher Down, Seventh Day Slumber, Amongst the Giants, Magdalene Rose, like all these bands. We've all been taken care of in a way that a lot of bands never get to experience. Mm-hmm. And we are grateful. And that's something that we need to say more often, of just thank you, because there's a list of people right now, like a Rolodex in my head, that have come alongside my family. And during COVID, God used this group of people in supernatural ways to provide for our family. And it's not only a financial situation, it is cards in the mail, it's gift cards in the mail, it's prayer, it's messages, it's calling, hey, just calling to check in, what's going on? Because that's something that bands on the road are lacking. They don't have enough people calling them. And sometimes it's straight up because they don't give out their phone number, and that's fine, whatever. Don't give out your number, whatever. But to know that people are thinking and praying for myself and my family and the drive, and like you had mentioned earlier, like I don't tackle transmissions. No, I don't. I have to hire someone to do it because I would not want to mess it up. And, like randomly this family showed up in Nashville at a show I did at Wedge Pizza. And I thought I recognized them when they walked in, but I'm like, they don't live here, so it's not them or whatever. And I'd mentioned I had an acoustic guitar as a raffle. I'm like, yeah, the raffles to help pay for this transmission, it's super expensive, blah, blah, blah. And afterwards, I remember I walked up to say hey to Bruce Fitzhugh from Living Sacrifice, one of my favorite bands of all time. And I walk up there, and then I realize it's Allie and her daughter, and they live in Missouri, and they just happened to see on my Facebook I was playing 7 minutes away from their hotel. They came into town to go to a concert at Bridgestone Arena the next night, all this stuff. Anyway, they're like, feel like the Lord wants us to take care of your transmission. I'm like, nah, play it off. And they're like, you telling Jesus no? And I'm like, ooh. I'll shut up. And so, it's just people that they see a need and God puts it on their heart to take care of it. And
when you've blessed people's hearts as much as you have with your music, it's the one little way that they can show their appreciation.
Well, even when I'll do, like, I'll have a day off on the road, I'm like, man, I feel worthless. I'm going to do a live stream. I hate live stream. I hate it that my face is on this camera right now. I despise it. I'd rather you look at this mountain. Beautiful, right? On the live stream, like, normally it's like my peers are hijacking the chat, like, hey, what's going on? Hey, remember? I'm like, let me play some songs, all this stuff. And then here comes Cindy, like, Matt, hey, remind them what your PayPal is. Hey, what's your Venmo? Like, all this stuff. I'm like, you guys are always looking out for, like, how can we somehow make this a little easier for these musicians? And I mean, I snack on the bags of snacks you guys all bring for weeks. Like, I eat stuff that I don't even like because I'm driving at 3 a.m. I'm like, okay. I mean, when I'm rambling, I don't want to keep rambling. Thank you. Whether you listen to our band, whether you come to shows, whether you're hearing this for the first time ever and you have no idea who Spoken is or Disciple or any of these bands, thank you for taking the time. Thank you, Cindy, for taking the time to do this. To all the bands that are trying to travel and tour, and whether they're trying to earn a living or they've got someone that's supporting them and funding them, whatever, cool. Be nice to the people that are coming to the show. Take time to communicate with them. Let them know that you're grateful they're there. I don't care who you are. Like, it doesn't matter. Big band, small band. Make sure the promoter knows that you're grateful that they said yes to doing a show. Make sure that the people that are volunteering are appreciated. Make sure the people that are taking care of hospitality and your meal and and bring you bottles of water, whatever, help with parking in the parking lot. They posted it on their Facebook. They talked about the show. They brought a friend from school. Thank you. That's it. I'll shut up. I literally could go on forever about it. And I'm just grateful. I'm grateful that I get to do this. And I want to finish strong whenever that is, however old I am. And I always tell people, they're like, how long are you going to do this? I'm like, until I'm dead, or, God tells me to do something else. I was like, unfortunately, I'm not John Schlitt. I can't do this forever. And he sounds as good as he ever has. So I'll leave it at that. I'm not John.
For all the fans, thank you for what you've done and poured into our lives too.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Well, Dan and I appreciate and love you, Matt.
I appreciate you guys. Love you too.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.
Thank you for listening. Stay tuned for more great music and check out my blog page on the Solid Rock Radio website for my guests' social media links. If you've missed any of my past interviews, you can find them uploaded to podcast.solidrockradio.org. Have a wonderful week, and let's be kind to one another.